Okay, sorry guys, it was brought to my attention that the audio cut out about halfway through my other video, and that's not my intention. I watch these and try to edit them before I upload them to YouTube, but sometimes I guess things can get lost in translation. So to just essentially start from scratch and redo the whole thing, we're doing this assignment so you can get more hands-on experience with some of these tools and the processes that you might face if you were indeed in a geoprocessing or spatial analysis or even an IT technician role trying to work with planners or engineers or counselors, people who need to make decisions but they don't really have good visual aids or an understanding of data that's right in front of them. So good. Continuing on with the situation or the hypothetical scenario we had for your test, what essentially you're tasked with doing is coming up with various layers that you'll be able to show to the planning committee while they're at this meeting and they're discussing the various options for the residential district that has essentially become the squeakiest wheel, would be one way to put it. So just jumping right into it, if you look at this territory as a whole, this would be your focus area. This is the area that you would want to show them. They're not concerned with everything else. All this data is now kind of irrelevant in essence. So they want to see just what they can spend and what they can improve, what the situation is in this particular territory with these roads. And then you've been given this made up layer of roads, but we'll just pretend that it's the real deal. And this is the infrastructure network for the automobiles in and around Residential District 2. If you look at the table, you'll see that there are 83 separate pieces of road and that they all have similar categories. Now, the first thing that I would do is start with a clip or some type of export so that way you can have a focus area. Now, when you think of a clip, if you didn't really get it from the book or you're kind of confused, essentially you're just using one geographic feature, like a boundary, and you're going to take it like a cookie cutter and put it over top of another layer, and you're going to smush it down, and you're going to chop off everything that's outside of your cookie cutter and keep only what's inside. Okay? And that's really useful when you don't really care about this or any other information that might be outside of it, and you just want to show what's in this area. You want to show what you can do with the money that's been given to you if you have to confine it to a specific geographic boundary. So one way to do that is to go to your select features button, and then you click on the polygon that you want to be your boundary for your focus. And you can go then, what I typically do is you go to the regions layer, which is where that boundary is. You can go down to data and export data. Make sure you export it somewhere that you're going to be able to find it and name something that's going to make sense so you don't lose it and it doesn't get lost with some of the other layers. So this is going to be regions 3 export. Let's say okay. You're going to add that layer to the map, and then if you turn regions off, you still have this new regions 3 export with the same amount of data that came from that other table, but there's only one entry. You still got the acres, the territory name, and the region it's in, but it's just limited to this one little spec. And that's good because now if you want to, you could change the symbology, and that doesn't do you any good if it's the same color. You could pick something else and outline it, and we'll say blue. So now when you go to clear all your selected features, if you had a legend on your map, or if you just wanted to point this out, you could say, okay, this is the area that we're including. Another way to do this is if you wanted to use any of your select features, it's the same thing. Any way that you come in, either by attributes or location, and you get something selected, all you have to do is go right click on that layer, go down to data, and then export that data, and that you're going to get a whole new layer that you can work with. And this is always good because instead of drawing your own polygons or trying to mess with the base layer, that you have something now essentially like a copy, and you can mess with a copy, you can doodle on it, or you can alter the data in the table, and if you screw something up or it's wrong, you're not messing with your base data. So you're going to make as many copies as you need to get your end result, your end map, but you always have that fresh regions layer. It's like, okay, I know this is a starting point. This is my control. I can always come back to this regions and make something new because I know it's right, and if I mess up, it's not a big deal. So that's why I like to use the export feature to get what I'm going to do for my clip. If you want to, though, if you just go and you select this without doing a clip, you can, or excuse me, without exporting the data, you can still go to clip, input features, and you want to clip the main roads, and you're gonna use the regions layer, and then take it again, name it something you're gonna remember. I'll just call this one regions 3 clip. Say OK. And now, if you turn your roads off, see this regions 3 clip is just in here, and you didn't have to. All you had to do was click on this, and again, if you noticed, I used the regions layer. Now, if you turn that off and you go back into clip, you can use the individual polygon, which was this regions 3 export. Either method is okay. There's not a, it's just whatever you prefer, whatever makes the most sense, or whichever is easiest for you to do. The end result is still the same. So now that you have that, you can do your classifications based on region. And this is where it might be a good idea to practice the dissolve tool, hint hint. If you go again into the road types, you notice you have 83 different selected road types. And if you use the dissolve feature, which I'll let you figure out on your own, hopefully, then you go and you can reduce it into 4 categories, just 4 features. So you can have a layer that says, alright, well, here is the road breakdown based on color, and it's nice Easter pastels. Now the other thing you can do, a big one, is if you add the report that was given to you, it's just all this is an Excel file. And you always go, this is just an XLM file for the database, and it's some coding, and I'm not sure what it does. But you always have a list of the tabs and the tab names from Excel files. So there's only one tab with data on it, and that's showing you that it's the export output. If you add that to your table, you can open it up just like any other layer, and you'll notice that it has road IDs. Now we're not going to get into database management, or if any of you have had access, it's just not, I'm not going to focus on it too much, but just know that this is something that a more advanced user could do, and this is absolutely something you can do, and I'll help you with if you need it on your final project. But if you have Excel data and you have a common field, you know, it's like I've got all these road information, I've got it tied to something, and you have the age of the road and the level of traffic, 0 being no traffic at all, and 5 being the worst traffic there could be. But it's just a table. There's no way to represent it on the map. So you're like, well, actually, if I go back to my base roads layer, or the road clip, it doesn't matter, you can say, okay, well, the common field here, I know all these IDs are right there. Just like in your book, chapter 10, I think, if you do a join, you get this join table, or join window, and you can go by road ID is, remember, the common field. It's got to be a common field. If they don't match exactly, it's not going to work, which means column A has to match column B. There has to be a match for each entity that you're going to try to tie the data to. You pick your table, and since there's only one, it's this right here, the export table, and the export table has the same common column, the road ID. I always go to keep only matching records, because then if you see something missing or there's a null value, you'll know that something's not right in one of the tables. When you say OK and open up the table again, bam, now you have these roads tied to geographic features, and they had this additional information from the report that had nothing to do, all it was an Excel table, had nothing to do with Esri or AutoCAD or anything. And I don't think your book mentions it. I'll have to look again. It's been a while. It's been 2 weeks since I've read it. I apologize, but just in case, I always do this after I do a join, so that way I can make a permanent layer out of what I just created. If you go to the layer that you did the join on and you tell it export data, again, save this in your workspace. I'm going to call this roads region 3 report. Say OK. Yes, I want to add it. Now I can go in and symbolize based on the level of traffic or the age of the roads, and you can adjust these to however you'd like to show them. But I'm gonna select all these again, and I'm going to make them a little bit thicker and hit apply. Turn off the Easter roads. So now you can show them, you can show the city council, it's like, well, the areas in green don't have a lot of traffic, but these do. And this isn't for, you don't have to glean anything out of this. I'm not looking for an answer. I just want you guys to be able to take bits and pieces of information and data and turn it into something useful in a format that they can understand. Because all you have is an Excel table and the test data that you had when you took your test, and you're going to turn it into something completely different so that people can see it in from a different viewpoint and make it useful. Because that's a lot easier for planners to understand, people who don't know anything about engineering or GIS, to say, well, if red is bad, then these areas, and the orange can't be good either. You know, they need to be looked at because they're pretty old. That's a lot easier for them to understand and see, as opposed to trying to read it in a report or have someone explain it to them without the visual aid. So as always, I was a little vague and kind of quick on this. I didn't want to make it a two-part video, and I hope I'm going to double check to make sure this one went through. But I want you guys to kind of struggle through this, and I'll absolutely help you. I'm not going to leave you hanging. You know, the assignments are supposed to be kind of the fluff in your grade, and to make sure that it makes up for what we weren't prepared for the first test, so that way you're much more prepared for your last test, and also to do some really cool stuff on your project if you want to employ these techniques. So just give me a shout if you have any questions, and hopefully, like I said, this video should have gone through. I think it did. Okay. Yep, any questions, just let me know.